It may or may not, the ideas here may or may not have been brought forth before him, but he formulated them in a certain way and added to them and expounded on them in his own particular way. And it's good to really look and see what was unique about his teachings. I'm not going to go too much into depth, but I'll cover the Four Noble Truths very briefly, and I'll just list them to start with. One is the fact of suffering, just the recognition that life and the world is pervaded with suffering, from which no living beings can escape from. They can escape from it for a while, but not forever. And this, of course, may be a truth that other people have recognized before. And so this is maybe not unique, but it is good to just to say it clearly, to call it out, that this is one of the fundamental problems of life that we all seek to find some solution to. And it certainly has been a core element of Indian philosophy and perhaps of all philosophy in the world. Is what do we do with this? What do we do with the situation in which we have found ourselves? The second noble truth was the concept that, well, if you have this problem, what is the cause of the problem? And he says there is a cause for that problem. And I'm going to come back to that point in a couple moments, but I'll cover the rest of the noble truth. So he said he identified a cause. And identifying the cause is important because by removing the causes, the effects will disappear. And that is a basic tenet of Buddhism, that if you address the causes, the symptoms will disappear. Just like any medical disease, you don't just address the symptoms, you address the cause. And you address the cause, these symptoms will disappear. And so that was another basic tenet, the second noble truth. The third noble truth is that the cessation of suffering is a possibility. It exists. There is a solution to this problem. And then the fourth noble truth is summed up in the eightfold path, which he gives, which is the solution, which is the way in which, if you were to follow carefully and diligently for a long period of time, that you can possibly reach that end of suffering. Now, that's the four noble truths, and that is what some people would consider the core element of Buddhism, that this is what is really the Buddha's unique gift to the world, is just to simply state these in this way, and then to expound on them further and actually give more and more meanings behind each of these. So I'm going to back up to the second noble truth, and that is the cause of suffering. There is a cause of suffering. And you can talk about this at length in many ways. But the simplest explanation is, he said, the cause of suffering is craving. And that is that the wanting for things. And the word in Pali is tanha. And this comes from, and it's helpful to look back towards where that word came from. It came from the Sanskrit trishna. And trishna literally means thirst. And so I think that's a useful way to look at it, thirst. Thirst can be small, just, I just need a sip of water, or thirst can be very large. I need something that perhaps I don't even really need. I crave for something large. So it has a range of meaning. And there's three types of thirst that he explains. Okay, what is thirst? What is craving? He explains there's three types. There's bhava tanha, which is, bhava means being, and so it's the desire to be. And this is the desire to be something more than you are, to acquire things, to acquire status, to be bigger than what you are, be more than what you are. And you see this in people in the world that sometimes they're very aggressive. They're trying to establish themselves in the world in some way, in the status, the hierarchy. They're trying to create meaning for their life by pushing others around or pretending to be belittling others, etc. So you see this. And I like to say also that sometimes it's good to look at the flip side of that. Where does that come from? Because I think that a lot of the craving we have is really based in fear. And so the fear associated with the desire of becoming is the fear of non-existence. The fear is perhaps of being irrelevant, So you see this in people. They fear being irrelevant, and so they assert themselves, they overemphasize themselves, trying to establish their meaning and their importance in life. So, and it's good to recognize this, and not to be critical of other people, but it's basically human understanding. Try to understand how people are behaving, not ourselves, but as well as the people around us. Because as we travel through life, we meet people who really dumbfound us. Where does that behavior come from? Why are they acting like that? Even sometimes in religious settings, people act very badly, and they justify themselves that they're trying to teach, or they're trying to do the right thing, and yet they act in ways that are hurtful. And you'll have to look at the fear behind that. And secondly, the second form of craving out of the three is abhavatanha. Exactly the opposite. If you put up before one of these words in the Indian languages, it makes it the opposite. So abhavatanha is the desire to be. Abhavatanha is the desire not to be, non-existence. Then maybe perhaps it's the wishing away of things that afflict us, whether it's a disease or a situation that we find ourselves in. And and some of us find ourselves in this position where we're afflicted, other people are oppressing us, afflicting us, etc. And it makes us want to just escape existence. It wants us to escape this world. We want to get away from it. And then again, there's a fear here. There's this fear of existence. There's this fear of being oppressed, and this is going to continue on forever, and there's no way out. So this is the other type of craving and the other fear associated with it. And then the last one is something we are also very familiar with, is kama tanha, or the thirst for sensual objects. And by sensual objects, it's a big topic. It seems simple. We all understand it. The thirst, we want chocolate ice cream, we want this or that. And the desire for these things is also, I would say, based on fear. And in some ways, it's based on the fear of facing the other fears. We look for these things because while we indulge ourselves in whether it's mental objects, intellectual objects, or sensual objects, food types, whatever, that for those moments we experience a release from the other fears of non-existence or existence, and we turn to those things. And it's not necessarily bad. It's good sometimes. We need to refresh ourselves, replenish ourselves, and reset our minds with good things. And that's fine, but it's also good to recognize when it goes beyond that, and recognize the nature of that tendency that we all have. And that all these tendencies lead to suffering in some ways. So now I'm going to tie that back into the meditation practice. So when we go to meditate, whether it's walking meditation or sitting meditation, we look for stillness of mind. We look for stillness of mind in order to see clearly. And in the moments of clarity, then it's at that point that out of our subconscious, out of our own mind, almost unwillingly, thoughts and emotions arise. And one way of looking at those thoughts and emotions is to ask, what kind of craving does that represent? What kind of fear has given the rising to this thought or emotion? And it's just one way of looking at it. And that's part of what meditation is about, the calming, the stilling of the body and the mind to a state where you can actually start to look at these things will arise, and then you start to try to understand where do they come from and what are they. And we return to the practice of quieting and stilling and letting go of those things as they arise. So that's just one simple tie-in between the philosophy, the basic philosophy of Buddhism, the Four Noble Truths, the three causes of suffering, and your practice. And so you can or not, contemplate that to some extent today in our practice. Now, as usual, we will start with walking meditation around the large garden. So about 1 hour around the large garden we will walk. And I cover the basics. So one, we typically will use one of two methods. The two methods both use the name of the Buddha. In Thai, that is Buddho. So you can do this in two ways. You can either say one syllable per step. So as I bring the foot down, I say Pu, and as I bring the other foot down, I say To. So look how long, Bhavanawa Pu, look how long, Bhavanawa Po. And then the second method is almost the same, but it just slows it down a little bit. I say one word per step, so the entire word in one step. So as I raise the foot, I say Pu. As I bring it down, I say To. As I raise the foot, I say Pu. As I lower it, I say To. So Yok Tao Kun, Bhavanawa Pu, Yok Tao Long, Bhavanawa Po. So meaning Song Wiki, Yok Tao. So you can choose the method that you like. You can alternate between them, and of course if you have another method that you know works for you, you can go with that one. These are the two basic methods we start with. In the Thai tradition, we hold the hands in front. I'll put the microphone down to show you. It doesn't have to be in real particular way, but there are some restrictions, so let me show you. So the correct way would simply be hold the hands like this. So any simple clasp of the hands in front at about waist level. And then I'll show you what we try to avoid. We don't allow the hands to swing alongside, so none of this. We don't put the hands behind us when we're walking together. And we don't cross the arms across the chest, so this is what you shouldn't do. Ani Maitutong. So it's just a simple clasp at that waist level. The other form that we follow is that we space each other out 3 to 4 meters. Rayaham, Ratyam, Ratwang, Kong, San Tung Simet. And this is good for both COVID, but it's also removes distractions. But if you see somebody getting too far ahead, you may need to speed up. If you see somebody getting too close, maybe you need to slow down. So we pace each other out to help each other with the practice. The men will follow the monks. If we have nuns, they will go behind the men, and the women follow the nuns. So that's the basic order. Remember that the basic instruction is to be calm, develop calmness and coolness in the heart and mind. So, Tanhai, Diktai, Sango. The body should also be relaxed. So, you let go of tension in the body. The walk is a very natural, comfortable walk. It's slower than we're used to walking, but it's a comfortable, natural walk that introduces unnecessary tension. So, Tanhai, Randai, Pantai. It's just a very natural, comfortable walk. So having said that, let's begin. Please stand up and begin to line up. The monks will start, and then we'll follow nuns and then women. Thank you so much.